So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted to have with us Rachel, Joe, and Javed, who are co-founders of IFF Talent. So, guys, thank you so much for spending some time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourselves, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Joe Ingham, co-founder of IFF Talent, alongside the brilliant Rachel Franklin and the brilliant Javed Bobat. Very lucky to work with these two fantastic individuals. We formally launched our recruitment company in September 2024. Feels like an eternity ago now. Though it, there's a lot of planning went into that, but we've all three of us been on the recruitment market for a long time. Javed and I worked together historically, and Rachel and I were competitors previously before deciding to join forces.
Brilliant.
Common joke that we often regurgitate is I met Rachel once to try and hire her in my previous business. Rachel met myself with the same ambition to try and hire me into her business. We got on like a house on fire, kept in touch, and when my previous business went through what's called an EOT transaction, I was a shareholder and latterly no longer a shareholder following the transaction. Wanted to set up my own company, but wanted to do it with some individuals, and the kind of coming together of us happened over a period of time to co-found what is now IFF Talent. We wanted to do something a little bit different. Recruitment's what we do. We love recruitment, but myself and Rachel focus much more on the kind of finance recruitment market across the senior finance and executive finance space, interim recruitment and permanent recruitment.
Yep.
And Javed's got a storied history working across what we call the mid-market finance market. So newly qualified accountants through to
Right.
senior business leaders essentially. And the three of us very much, start up over that first year, working off kitchen tables, chaotic, chaotic life. 2 years later feels pretty hard to we're here now, really, isn't it? It's
Yeah, I don't
crazy.
think anyone can quite prepare you for setting up a business. I think, we've all been in startup environments and we've learned lots from those, but the recruitment bit is the bit that we all know and love.
Yeah.
However, the actual running of a business is challenging.
To say the least.
So I'm sort of head of finance in
Quasi CFO.
yeah, which is sort of totally unemployable in the local market, but I sort of do a decent job here internally. But there's a lot of upskilling. You've got marketing, you've got strategy, you've got finance. There's loads outside the recruitment piece. So I think that is the biggest learning. All three of us came together, but I think what makes it really successful is that we all have quite different skill sets.
Yeah.
Both from a skill set and from a soft skill set perspective. And I think that what makes it is that there's a lot of decisions to be made.
Yeah.
And we all came together and I think bring something very different to the table. And I think that's what the first 2 years has created the success that we've had so far.
It's worth mentioning right at the core of the business, we've got what we call our three pillars to our business as well.
Yep.
So Joe Ingham, the I in IF, Rachel Franklin, the F, and then you've got Javed Bobat, and people would say, well, why is it not IFB or FBI? Or Javed had his own business called Fide, which was very much an ethical recruitment company. And Javed is a huge champion of mental health and well-being in the workplace. So
Right.
anytime he works with a client, he would deliver free mental health workshops for the finance teams or the wider business, through to doing voluntary mental health awareness days as well. So we kind of looked at, if recruitment gets a bad reputation and there's a lot of instances where it's justified, what we wanted to do is something a little bit different. We absolutely value the right way of doing recruitment and working with businesses in the ethical, the high integrity way. Simple things: do what you say you're going to do, don't be an idiot, do the right things, treat people how you'd like to be treated. But also at the core of the business, with what Jav did historically before we came together, how can we create something that we've all got a passion about that we can and lead on? So we've absolutely got mental health and well-being front and center in the business. Myself, I was really passionate about social mobility, and it's something that I'm doing more and more in. So I go and talk to local schools. We'll speak about my background and very much work across that executive suite, but come from a very humble working class council estate type background. And if you'd have told me a bit about PwC when I was 16 years old, I would say I'd have thought it was an acronym for a drug on the local estate. I wouldn't have had a clue what a PwC or a KPMG or an EY was, but you
Yep.
kind of work hard and escape the environment, climb the social ladder, and you're around that environment, and you can spend time in private schools where partners are coming in and talking to young kids about careers. But you go back to a school where I went to school, and not much has changed. These young kids don't really know much about the world of work that's out there, and
Yeah.
can we then bring a bit of our world to their world? And that's one of the other core kind of pillars of our business in terms of where we want to give back. With Rachel leading very much on the what we call women in finance or equity in the workplace, and championing diversity across boards, across wider businesses. So there are three pillars, and they're all backed up by our kind of pledge or commitment to then give back. So in a nutshell, every time we make a recruitment fee, 3% of that recruitment fee goes back into the community via a CIC that will support
Oh, wow.
schools that need extra funding, mental health training, diversity workshops, those kind of things. We are very passionate about giving back, alongside obviously building a sustainable and profitable recruitment company. And probably a good
Wow.
chance for you to introduce yourself a little bit more there.
Yeah. So I had so Joe and I worked together several years ago, but then the last before we got together, I spent 4 years. It just started around COVID, actually, when lockdown happened, setting up my own, as Joe mentioned, my own recruitment company. And it was my first, not just opportunity of having my own business, but really looking at recruitment in a different lens and what I'd experienced in the previous 18 years. And the concept of purpose was something that was growing, and I felt that was missing for me in the corporate world. So really spending those few years understanding what being purpose driven meant as an individual, as a business owner, but also how that can sort of translate both in creating, ultimately, yes, it was just me, it's still a sustainable and a successful sort of business, but ultimately it was just me that was doing it. And I always felt that there was a wider ambition beyond just me doing that, for the rest of my sort of work life. So it was then just around the timing of how sort of we then came together and came up with the idea of how do we create this purpose-led business where, yes, we're going to be profitable and successful, but how we go about doing it and the legacy we
Yes.
leave behind is something that we're all equally passionate about. And having just delivered our values sort of as part of our sort of year-end presentation to the team this morning, that came out amongst the team in terms of
Brilliant.
feedback as well about how what we're doing, but how we're going about it is something that's really is something that stands out for the team as well.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That, absolutely fascinating. And it was interesting, Rachel, you said quite early on about coming together and forming a business. It's something we find a lot, is that um, most businesses are started by people that are great at what they do. They're not necessarily great at running a business at what they do, because it's two different things. And there's a lot of learning there. So it'd be great to touch on that a little bit. And just so we're clear, 'cause I'm quite keen to understand what would make a great client for you, for anyone that's watching. What sort of organizations do you serve best, would you say?
It ranges, doesn't it, guys? We're doing very much embedded in the kind of private equity community. So businesses that have got private equity backing, and the owner managed SME market has been probably the core of our business. But we do work with all the large corporates across Yorkshire and the
Right.
north as well. So we've got some really good clients. Your big businesses, your Morrisons of the world, Asda's, those types of organisations have been quite key clients for us. But it's very much relationship focused. It's,
Yeah.
we like to work with businesses typically on an exclusive relationship, on what we call a partnership. We're not there just to support on one piece of recruitment, but to build a relationship over a period of time. We're absolutely not wanting to be what you'd call transactional recruiters, where it's do a transaction, move on. We're there to advise and add value to not just the
Yes.
recruitment search, but the wider business. We look at all areas of hiring and retention and advise where we can along the way.
And I think that was shown actually again when we did this presentation this morning, that 75% of our revenue in these 2 years have all been repeat business, because
Brilliant.
that is, again, it's about purpose, it's about retention, it's about delivery, and that really came across when we were looking at the numbers this morning.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But purpose is so important in business. It's really and I believe it's becoming more and more important. And something I've always believed, or I've believed for quite a long time now, is that I always say, good relationships can come with a match of goals. We both want to achieve the same thing, but great relationships come with a match of values. We both feel the same things are important, and that's where you get that match, and that's where things like repeat business, because we work with people that like us and we like them, and we believe the same things are really important, if that makes sense. It's so well, obviously we've talked a little bit about background. So looking back over these last couple of years, and obviously it sounds like it's been quite an exciting time for you guys. What looking back, what are some of the biggest issues and challenges you've had to overcome?
Oh, it's been a minute, hasn't there? I mean, it's
I think it's the broad skill set that you need, isn't it, when you come
Yeah.
into a business, and the core of everything is people. The people that you do it with are the most fundamental thing, because you have to be you have to be like-minded. You have to have the same values. You have to have the same goal, but you don't necessarily have to agree on everything.
Yeah.
But there's got to be compromise, like in any relationship, partnership in your life. There has to be compromise around that. But I think the biggest learning is definitely all the different skills that you have to bring, but with an acceptance that you don't have to be brilliant at everything.
Yep.
I sort of take the 80-20 rule.
Yep.
I'd say Joe's a bit more of a perfectionist, but I take a bit of an 80-20 rule that actually if he's 80% there, it's good enough and we need to move on, otherwise we'll never get anything done. So I think that's definitely just accepting that we're never going to get perfection, but those different skills that we all bring and having that complementary skill set.
Absolutely. I think I can say I woke up on day one and in my gut I knew that I'd done the right thing because I've always wanted to set up my own recruitment company.
Brilliant.
And I mean, I will attest that I actually met Jav as a graduate. With 2009 or 10, whenever it was, and he said, "Where do you want to be when you're older?" I said, "Well, I don't want to work for somebody for a long time. I want to set up my own company eventually." And I've
Brilliant.
pretty much said that any company I've worked in. So day one, almost this kind of cathartic, I've done the right thing feeling. But by day 10, I'll watch my language on this podcast. But I'm like, this is really hard. And it was summed up recently by a CFO that I'm doing some work with at the moment, and he said there's a very different skill set to being a good recruiter to being a good owner of a business or running a business. And time management, Chris, is critical. You and I could be having this conversation about a piece of recruitment and it would be second nature because we've done it our whole career. So we talk about the process, the outcome, the deliverables, all those things, whether you're a candidate or a client, and I know where you go and you do your job. But we could go from that historically working in an organization, that would be our job day in, day out, with little bits of different projects thrown in here and there. Our job now is, we could be going from to hiring people, looking at cash flow forecasting. We're doing marketing and strategy. We're doing a website build at the moment, which has been a huge learning curve, and we've put a lot of time and effort into that. We've constantly got different meetings about different parts of the business, but I think where we're now getting really good is the giving up control. And we've worked out what our individual strengths and weaknesses are, and we've got a really good alignment on that. So there's certain things that happen in the business now that I absolutely have no idea that's really happening, and I don't need to, because I've got absolute trust in Jav and Rage that are handling that they will deliver on that and do what's best for the business, and equally they will trust me to do what I'm good at as well.
I think that is absolutely critical, isn't it? It's letting go and having people around you that are more experienced or more passionate about those, and allowing them to sort of have that autonomy to deliver.
I think what we've done really well is we've really instilled professionalism from day one. So day one, we a really strong business plan, very much forecasting and looking ahead and getting all the right fundamentals in place, rather than try to build a business on the back of a fag packet, which you often hear about entrepreneurs building a business, and all they've built is a job essentially where they go out and make money. We've tried to build a business, and from day one, we've had board meetings that have been supported by a fantastic NED in a CFO that we're close to, who's really instilled some really great values from a business point of view. Brilliant. And if I go back to that board meeting, I think it's about three quarters ago, and he really did hammer home the importance of, right, you guys have now got to be prepared to give up an X percentage of your time to focus on the business and not be so much in the business. So we've really made a conscious effort to do that in the last probably 3 quarters, and we're starting to see the fruits of that. We've got a brilliant strategy marketing consultant helping us as well, and taking the weight away from the websites. You've got 3 different minds here who think about things differently. So you can imagine, we've got a classic quote in our business called kicking the if can down the road, because there's so many different ideas and things that we necessarily aren't going to agree on, that it just goes down the road. So we're learning to give up a lot of control individually,
but also giving accountabilities to each other. I think that's what the NED brought to the table, is actually holding us to account. And that's really important, because otherwise it does. Tasks do get kicked down the road very easily, and you're 3 months and you still haven't done it, and you're having to prioritize other things, and you're having to prioritize delivery. So that accountability actually was really useful in that first sort of year, wasn't it?
And I think just learning lessons along the way. I mean, we could be sat here in a year's time, and there'll be things we'll learn about ourselves individually, and the dynamics of sort of working together, and things about the business, because ultimately we've not done this before. And
Yeah,
even if I'd done my own thing for a few years, it is completely different to come in and working together as a three. So I think just knowing that we'll keep learning along the way. We probably will make sort of mistakes on the way, and not then
yes,
being sort of too hard, more than how we learn from them and what we're going to do differently next time. So I think all these things, just understanding that on that journey, that we're all then, appreciate and understand that. And,
brilliant.
as long as we just have that continuous improvement mindset individually and collectively, there's going to be all manner of things that we know that are going to be still coming our way as business owners, to try and build something to keep growing, for it to be sustainable and profitable. And we'll know that we've got the mindset to deal with it, and yeah, and know that, yeah, whatever we sort of do along the way, it's not perfect, we'll make it better next time.
Brilliant. Have you guys done any sort of behavioural or values profiling between the three of you as a team? Like, so you
We've done,
understand of those?
yeah, we have in a roundabout way. We invested a lot of time working with a brilliant lady called Justine Shaw, who is an ex-CPO, fantastic at values and culture within a business. So we've spent,
Brilliant.
rather than trying to set up some values from day one that anyone could set up, that we have integrity, just the normal values, generic values.
Yeah,
We took a lot of time to do quite a lot of values-led sessions where we were really finding out more about ourselves, about the business, that we could then embed. So we're very close to now rolling them out. And with
brilliant.
that, we did some behavioral exercises along the way, and it was really good to find out more about each other and how well we work, how we work together. And we're
Yeah,
all we're absolutely different personality types. So these two have the patience of a saint to put working with myself, because I'm just very much point and go. And Rachel calls me the Duracell bunny.
Yeah.
So the
You never
first,
stop.
I never stop.
First email of the day, I made it my last email of the day. I'm like, oh, Joe's back. But actually, you get stuff done. We always say, if you want something done, ask Joe, because he's on it, he's efficient. And this is probably quite a sexist comment, but he's probably the most efficient man I think I've ever met. His level of organisation is another level.
Yeah,
brilliant.
I love what I do. I'm really passionate about what I do and incredibly driven, but equally, appreciate what other people bring to the table. And I love the personality profiling tests, and in the tests historically I've done that I've really enjoyed. I come out as a classic red or a D type, where it's very much point and go and
Yep,
do that. And Jav is the complete opposite. He would be what you call a blue. He's a thinker and a reflector.
brilliant.
The two of us
And super creative.
coming together would be an absolute car crash. But when you appreciate how that works, and Rachel's somewhere in the middle of that, with people that have come and joined us so far, with the people that are currently speaking to us about joining us, they love that you've got three different people running a business rather than just one shareholder who
Yep.
it's their way. You've got three people who just have very different ways of doing things, but it works. It works really well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and all massively passionate about the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I think, I mean, I do a lot of work in myself, and I think it's great to have different profiles working together, because, and embrace the difference of opinion, and accept that in certain points there will be friction between different points of view, but friction is energy, and energy is great. So
Absolutely.
it's like, if you all were exactly the same and agree with each other, then that would be more challenging than if you had those
Yeah.
difference of opinions in different ways. And I think it's embracing that, and really celebrating the fact that we're all different, and we all offer different things at different times. But I think, going back to that point about business owners, I've really found this quite interesting, and it's something we do a lot of work on. Is one of the most useful things, but also most challenging things we're taught culturally, typically from kids, from being kids, is the harder you work, the more successful you'll be. And that, that's very, very true thing, up until a point when you're running a business, that if we still focus on the success of the business about how hard we work rather than how we can lead a team of hard-working people, if we're not careful, we become the bottleneck to the growth of the business. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think you talked a bit about working on it more rather than in it, and that's a big challenge. I think many people I meet have in terms of it's a quite significant identity change at that point.
Yeah, because especially within our role as within our industry, that um, we have to do both.
Yeah.
Because if we're looking at from a pure financial viewpoint, the success of the business, financially, we have to work sort of and doing the roles we do, because that's where, I'm not saying all, but that's where a lot of the revenues come from. That's where you
Yes.
win work for the rest of the team, but you can't just do that. So balancing that, with not that all three of us will be interested in doing it, but we're all hands-on, we're all sort of contributing, and financially, but then we also then need to contribute in all the other areas and the pillars that take in running the business. So people, operations, marketing, strategy, commercial, IT, systems, finance, like the whole sort of thing. So balancing the two is tricky, and there may well be other industries, but where fee earning and sort of we cannot let go of the fee earning completely, because that will leave the whole business very exposed.
And at this point, it's one of our sales pitches, though. It's founder-led delivery. We do again.
That's our strength, isn't it?
We go to businesses and work directly with them, and they get us. Where other recruiters will go and pitch for some work, and they'll roll out somebody, and then somebody else will be delivering it in the team, and they don't know who to speak to. And actually, if you're working with me, you get me. If you work with Rach, you get Rach. If you work with Jav, you get Jav. And there's a lot of collaboration within the team as well. And I think we've hired really well as well. We've hired really well. The people that work with us so far, they're self-sufficient, very driven, really good values, and we've got a lot of trust in them. And you start from that looking at the future of the business, and it's going to be very much founder-led delivery for the next couple of years, because that's the nature of what we do. But at a certain point, you start looking at giving up more control. And if you continue to hire well, you look at the future success of the business and future proofing of, what does one's exit potentially look like? And I go back to it was a brilliant quote. There's a contact called Craig Richardson, who's a corporate finance and private equity advisor for PhD Capital. And it stuck with me. It was a LinkedIn meme that he put on. And it was, it was about creating a job rather than creating a business. And if the business is very much you've only created a job and not a business.
Yeah.
And at that moment, we are still very much involved. And while we are creating a business, it still feels like a job.
Yes.
The more time we can get to take separation away from the job and being on the business, that's when we'll start really seeing the kind of compounding effects take place.
Yeah, it is a difficult transition. Absolutely, especially I'd suggest in professional service firms. And I've seen that time, because the challenge is we're often the highest billers. So the idea of taking the billing time away to be business growth, working on time, it's quite a difficult thing to do, especially in your circumstance. But without it, eventually, as I say, we become the the limitation to growth.
I think it's a great learning curve, Chris, as well. I think, if you just to take, I mean, Jav was doing his own business before, but certainly Rachel and I very much, working for another organisation, doing the recruitment and loving what you do, but you're doing the same thing day in, day out. And you can do that at any other organisation, and you might work with a different client here and a different client there, but you're doing the same job. And we advise people for a living that if you aren't getting growth from a potential role or you're learning more, then every couple of years, if you're not going to get that growth internally from the organisation you're at, you should look externally. And that's where we come into play. Yeah, a lot of recruiters sit in the same role for X number of years, and they get really good at doing their job. But from a growth point of view, this has been phenomenal in terms of the learning curve, hasn't it? And you wake up every day and there's a different challenge, and it's not always recruitment, it's the growing of the business. And internally, it's really enjoyable, even though it's a challenge. It's something different and something new that you can do.
Absolutely.
We've tried to take all of the positives that we all had in our previous businesses to create the culture we've got at IFF Talent. And a big and a core one of that is obviously purpose, but also collaboration. So typically in recruitment, every fee earner will have their own personal targets. But actually, we've made it very much a team target. And you share candidates, you share ideas, and that has, again, I think, been really part of the success of it. We're all driven. We all know we have a certain output. We all know we want to achieve, personally achieve certain numbers. but actually it's really unique. So we don't have postcode ownership, we don't have candidate ownership. We have this team ethos, which has been brilliant in terms of output for us. And I think and that team culture has been over and above, I think, our biggest.
You keep saying collaboration over competition. It's a very inwardly competitive role, is recruitment, and you've got targets on the wall wherever you go, and all that kind of stuff, and it can incite certain behaviours. Even if you hire good people, it's very much a fee income driven job, and it can be very competitive. But we keep hammering, collaboration over competition. That is very much our mantra internally at the business.
And everyone that's joined us have really said this is such a great way to run a business.
Well, I did know when we first started the conversation was that you said pretty much all three of you were in competition with each other, but chose to embrace and work and look at working together rather than, be competitive, if that makes sense. And again, we see time and time again organizations, individuals that collaborate rather than, they work on an abundant mentality rather than a scarcity mentality tend to be way more successful.
Yeah.
So you mentioned one or two people already, and I think you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. So I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that is business or sport or life in general. Who has had the biggest impact on you guys?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think in recruitment you learn a lot, don't you, by just the people you're around. I mean, it's a difficult one for me. I was in the same business for 18 years, and I worked with some really phenomenal people. But again, a lot of that was more around soft skills. I think that really I took from that business and creating culture. And we have had an external coach here, haven't we? But
Joe mentioned. I think that the non-exec that we've had in Oliver Laird has been invaluable for us three, specifically within the guise of IFF and coming together, as well as Justine Shaw, who's we've had basically exec coaching with as co-founders. So I think both those, for us anyway, played a very big part in getting us to where we want to be. Just their experience and know-how and professionalism and knowing to really get to sort of know us and helping us steer us in the direction that we're going, because having that external sort of sounding board, professionally in two different guys has been valuable. So we definitely say those two within our role. I know Joe will attest that because of the nature of those, commercially, Joe does a lot in terms of getting out and meeting clients and contact. And Joe, I know, will appreciate a lot of the time that's been given to him by advisors and CFOs and CXOs and MDs that Joe meets week in, week out. I'm sure he'd say that
I mean, there's two kind of answers to that. So first, going back to wanting to do this for a long time, I feel incredibly lucky that I've worked with some phenomenal business leaders. The owner of my last business, I learned an incredible amount from a chap called Nick who built an incredible business, and before that, a business called Axon Moore, and again founded on incredible ethics and values, and still in touch with one of the founders there, and he's been brilliant to catch up with, but just someone who has always wanted to embed the right level of ethics and way of doing things into a business. And that's very much what we've taken into our business. We all want to do well, but I keep coming back to we've had a couple of quarterly celebrations, and as long as we keep coming to work, we all learn well to look after our families. But importantly, we're happy and we enjoy what we're doing. We know no one's going to stab anyone in the back and all that kind of stuff. We can just, at the end of the day, I bring it very down to basics. We're not curing cancer. We're not doing anything worldly beating. So as long as we enjoy what we're doing, we do a good job, and we're kind of fair to the people we work with and do what we say we're going to do, we'll have a nice life, and everything else is great. But I look, I've mentioned what I do. It's one of the luckiest people alive. I get to work with people far more successful and intelligent than I am for a living, and I get to pick the brains of these people on a daily basis. So the learns that you get from that along the way, it's been quite humbling. And again, a quote I would use is, I thought I'd known a lot about business by being in business and being in a startup that scaled and getting to work with these people for a living. And you know the square root of bugger all until you go off and do it for yourself, and then it's a different learning curve. But you can pick, little. It sounds cheesy. Cash is king. You can't feed your family without cash, and all that kind of stuff that you hear along the way. You embed that into the business.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, the other one that goes along with cash is king that I like is turnover for vanity, but profit for sanity, and then cash is king,
Absolutely.
which I think is really key. So, alongside the quotes that you've given us, any favourite books or podcasts that you can recommend, whether that is about business or success or life in general? Is anything you'd like to share?
Well, I mean, I'm a massive podcast advocate in general, and I'm reading a great book at the moment, currently called I think I got the title wrong, but the How to Become the 0.1%, which is written by an ex-Marine, and obviously, if you remember the old adverts from probably, I think the start came out in 2005, the Royal Marine Commandos 99.9% need not apply. Basically,
Yeah, brilliant.
statistics of not getting through, and that's been I'm only so far into that, but I try and read regularly, which is not easy having three young children under five and a
Blimey.
business to obviously run with these guys. But being in the car a lot between meetings, I've always got a podcast on, and it can be a Stephen Bartlett podcast where he's got various business leaders on, through to I'm a big fan of the REC podcast. So the REC is the governing body of the recruitment industry.
Oh, okay.
And so really good at, from a business operational point of view, again, being
Yeah,
up to date on compliance and
brilliant.
different things happening within the industry, the statistics in the job market, the labour market in general, has been, just keeping in tune with that. It was important when you're a consultant and you're doing jobs, so you can have these conversations with your clients about the market, but equally now as a business owner, you've got a different angle on it now, and that's been the REC podcast has been fantastic from a business management point of view.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
You get time to read much?
I don't, yeah, I don't read podcasts and books, not so much. I've got a neurodivergent brain, so attention span is always a big issue. So I then have done something a lot more different. So you've got these apps like Blink List and one or two others where it can sort of summarize sort of
Yeah.
books and things. So it allows my brain to sort of, do lots of sort of micro learning moments over a period of time. So again, it just sort of works for me. Like,
Yeah.
for me, sort of even sort of reading books, I have to read the same page sometimes a second and third time because my brain just goes. So it's just my brain's
Yes.
way of digesting information quicker. So yeah, that works for me. But I guess some founders might find that relatable.
Yeah.
There's no sexy founder stuff here, is there? Getting up at ice baths at 4 o'clock in the morning and and doing the light therapy before going to bed at night. It's
You've got a bit of time.
yeah. If you see me, but it's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's usually I'm changing nappies or doing a milk feed and trying to work around that. I wish I could say there's a regimented routine, but there absolutely isn't. You do what works for you and how you get through.
Yeah, I think the only book that I read, I think, which is when I actually started this, was and I think it's quite a common one, is Never Split the Difference.
Oh, Chris Voss.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chris Moss. So, which I found quite useful again, just I think from a management of running a business and negotiation. That I think has some really quite good tips in it. I quite enjoyed that one. But again, I don't have a huge amount of time to read. I have to say, it's life is busy.
Yeah, no, it's just obviously any recommendations. I mean, one thing we do now, it was funny, we had Chris Voss, and we have we're lucky enough to have because we're a national organisation, a 2 day conference every year where we bring sort of 1,500 business people together. And we had Chris probably about 5 years ago came and spoke. And we have some and it's one of the ways I like to learn is just getting involved. It's something about
Yeah,
I don't know what it is about me, but I just like to be involved. I like to listen to speakers like in real life. It makes a difference to me. Yeah, no, but it's interesting, Chris Foss, because I was thinking read his book. He's never split the difference. Of course, you don't really want half a hostage back, do you? Given so it sort of makes sense in
it's
that one. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay.
yeah.
You
It
could
does
get
just make you look at it from a different perspective, doesn't it?
yeah, it really does. Yeah, absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. So just sticking on the learning front for a second, what would you say you've learned about yourselves throughout your journey so far, and possibly about each other?
Wow, that's
Ooh, what will I learn about
Right.
myself?
I'll let you go first.
Um, so I think about myself. So before I joined forces with Joe and Jav, I was at business for 18 years, loved it, and actually sort of went from variety of roles. Started as a PA, and then sort of moved to research, and then consultancy and business development and operations. So I sort of touched every role in the business, and I
Brilliant.
kind of loved that, and I loved that variety. Um, I think taking myself out of my comfort zone, think like many females, imposter syndrome is a huge thing, and that's part of the diversity bit. I remember joining the board at my old business, and I used to sit there and not really say a great deal because of that imposter syndrome is of what is what I'm going to say good enough. And I think I've learned over the years that actually it's not about being the loudest person, or it's not all about tangible things. It's sometimes about the small things that you contribute that can be in a lot of ways silent. So I think it's having confidence in yourself to go, I can do this. And I think what have I learned in Joe and Jav? I've learned Joe is an absolute energetic bundle of force of nature, which every business needs. In a really positive way. He's quick thinking, he drives things forward, he's hugely passionate, he's massively into customer service. He's very good at what he does, but he works very hard, so there's a lot I've learned off Joe, just I think around how he approaches things, the research that he does, his knowledge, and again, he's a massive reader, so you have so much, I just think, general knowledge, but with a really personable style. And Jav's, without a doubt, has to be his purpose and his ability to engage with people and generally want to make a difference. Is not what he says is not just lip service. It's a really deep rooted.
Brilliant.
He cares about people. And if you ask any of the team, they've got personal problems or challenges, Jav would be the first port of call, and having that general ability to care about people, because above and beyond, no matter how much money you have or no matter how successful you are, if you haven't got your basics in your friends, in your family, in your home life, it's all irrelevant. And I think, Jav has brought a huge amount of empathy and people focus to the business.
Brilliant.
And I think linked to that, it's something that I've done other talks about. What does it look like to be a future leader, whether it's in finance or otherwise? And one of the things I would say is the ability to basically adaptability and how agile you are. So things that worked for me and say Joe and Rachel successfully, largely in a previous company and previous role, 3, 5, 7, 10 years ago, that doesn't necessarily mean that exact blueprint works moving forward, because the world of work has changed, society keeps changing. We have a generational workforce, so your ability to adjust and adapt and not just be set in your ways, which I think that's where some business owners and leaders do fall short, because this worked before, why isn't it sort of working now? And I think how you adjust and adapt and move with the times to make sure, and whether it's as a business leader, as a manager, and knowing how you can sort of move forward for the benefit of your team as co-founders, and then for the work we do with clients, and hence our positioning as we have. We don't see us going up directly against other recruiters in our space. We feel we've got a different positioning and an offering, not just in words and actions. So, and that comes with this, this real fierce sort of ambition to want to keep evolving and learning. And yes, we've all had the success where we did, but we've taken the good of what we got, and then we'll keep improving. And every time we look at how else can we improve, how else can we make better, and how we're going to make the experience for us as co-founders, the team, and then more importantly for our clients and contacts, one where they're going to remember us. And it's that, and the bottom line is, the purpose element of giving back forms a part of it all. So the ability to be agile and adjust and adapt and move with the times. Any business owner or anyone needs to do that, because if you don't, you're going to fall behind, because things have changed significantly in the last 5 years, let alone in the last 10, and they're going to change a lot in the next 5 or 10. And if you don't adjust and adapt and be set in your ways, you're going to struggle, and your business or as an individual.
And I also think reverse mentoring is really an interesting one at the moment as well, as we all think that we learn off people that are more experienced than us or older than us, but actually I think there's a huge amount to learn off people that come from different backgrounds or are more junior than us, but like say are into AI and I think the reverse mentoring piece and embracing that multi-generational learning from others is actually really important.
Completely. And I think my key finding is go back to that kind of red type personality of just go and get things done. I look back at my career where I've made mistakes and things to learn from. It's been too reactive, whether that be replying to an email too quickly or something that's irked me, or
Yeah.
and I've spoken to someone in the wrong way, been too reactive. I'd like to think, I don't know if this is just being more self-aware or mellowing with age, being 38, looking about 68. That's 3 kids, Chris. It's just slowing things down a lot, slowing things down, and really appreciating
Yeah.
people being from a different background, having a different way of thinking about things, and your way is not always the right way. And I said, I'm never always right. I'll get a lot of things wrong, but appreciating that.
I've got that on record now, Joe.
I know. I was forgetting that as soon as I
Been recorded.
yeah.
That's all recorded.
Inward purpose. I have to look. I'm really passionate about what I do. I love what I do, but my biggest passion in life is being a dad, and being a dad to my boys. And this, I would
Brilliant.
say, all this world, it's all nonsense if you can't go off and enjoy your time with those that you love the most. And I feel like finding that purpose as well. Like this is building something to hopefully do well out of at some point. And I can have a nice life with my boys, but equally, getting the balance right along the way is not easy.
No.
You can be guilty because you're spending a lot of time on the business and you're not spending enough time with your family. If you do spend time with your family, you feel like you're guilty for not spending time on the business. But then having two brilliant co-owners and a team that we've hired really well so far starts taking care of that as well. And we do try and push and champion us to have downtime and make sure we're switching off at the right times and having the right practices around taking a bit of time away as well.
I think it's part of being a team. It's like,
Yeah.
as an individual, it's purely down to us. But when we form a team, we allow each other, each other and ourselves to maybe be able to do a bit more of
Yeah.
that and have each other's back. And I think that's so important. And it really helps. And going back to something we talked about earlier, we've got a definition in Action Coach of a true business, which is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without its owners. I'm keen to know your thoughts on that as a definition, if that makes sense.
Oh, it's a great definition. It goes back to what we said earlier, isn't it? What Craig's quote about building a business and not just a job.
Yes,
Our numbers commercially have far surpassed what we expected to do so far in our business. Our
brilliant. Well done.
projections that we set out versus what we've hit. We've just finished what we'd call our first financial year going at it, and we've done just shy of 1.4 million profit. But it's
Well
been incredibly delivered, hands-on by all of us. And if
Brilliant.
three of us walked away from the business now, the guys will still do well, but we all obviously have a massive contribution to that. We are years away from that being a reality for us at the moment, but obviously that's the goal to work towards. And I'd like to agree with that to a point. I think some of the greatest organisations that you can think of have been. You can currently think of Tesla with Elon Musk being a huge driving force on that. Would it have been the business without Elon Musk? Could he have stepped away from it and somebody else done what he did? Two great books I read last year was the Elon Musk biography by Walter Isaacson and Steve Jobs' autobiography by Walter Isaacson. Could Apple have been what it was without Steve Jobs at the helm at the same time? So there's always two sides to that argument, and I think each business has its own merits for that, but we certainly can't walk away at the moment.
No, it's an interesting thing. And you're right. But I would suggest, Elon's still got a job. I mean, it's good. It's a very, 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 very highly paid job. It's a job that you want, and it's the business as an organization, if that makes sense, as an entity. It is only a true entity of a business if it works independent of its owners. That doesn't mean it's the only way, and it doesn't mean there's any rights or wrongs. But I think what we found historically is it helps people focus on what the future might look like in terms of not needing to be involved. I always put can work without its owners, because if you truly love what you do, why would you ever want to stop? That's an absolute true thing. But too many people, I think, get into the habit of making excuses for why they are not more independent of the business.
And I think that's, I mean, true about, if we love what we do and we love what we do, so I can't imagine us entirely stepping away. I think we're 18 months on this journey. I think let's fast forward another 18 months, 3, 4, 5 years. if the balance is still as it has been in the first 18 months, which maybe, I mean, I'm just putting on it, it's probably about 80-20-ish.
Yep.
If that balance is still that, then we've not done something right.
Yeah.
And you know, Joe's mentioned a couple of times about building, building a legacy as a business, but also succession and everything like that. But yeah, that basically is not is the answer to this, is to what you've sort of saying there. But right, but that's what we need to work on. What we're going to sort of delegate, how we're going to get the right individuals with the right values, but also, you know, imparting our knowledge and everything to get them to flourish, which, you know, is now we've just started that phase in the last few months with the new hires. So yeah, that's now the next phase for us over the next few years, and that
Brilliant.
percentage will go down. Will it go down for it to be? I mean, we'd like it to be more favoured towards the team than us, but we'll see. But it's the nature of our industry that I think just a sense of sort of pride and a sense of wanting to lead by example and a sense of all those reasons and self-worth and everything, that we'd still want to be in the trenches, for want of a better phrase, not just sort of directing everything, because it is the sort of industry where you are being looked up to for that, not just guidance and mentorship, but ultimately, yeah, the lead by example. So I think it will still be there, but yeah, that number is something we need to work on bringing down as you know, to maybe a 50-50.
And it was a big part of our strategy when we were setting up the business, Chris. So you look at our name, IFF Talent, IFF, and it is a common theme in recruitment businesses where the owner's name or names is above the door. And if that owner walked away from the business, how would that business fare? And I can name several businesses where the owner is very much driving the business, and if he or she walked away, that business would be a completely different business. While our names are obviously entangled in the if, we chose the name if because obviously the surnames, but from a marketing point of view, the difference that we can make, and you can put IFF as the difference, or what if your recruiter could do that with two Fs, and almost
Yep.
future proofing the business with a bit of a catchy name for if that time ever did come. But again, that kind of future proofing of the business, the way recruitment's going, there's been huge seismic changes in the recruitment markets. The big listed
Very much.
businesses aren't as much of a strong force as they used to be, and it's very much more relationship focused now. And you're seeing
Yep.
a lot of boutiques, but there's also a huge rise in technology. And a big part of us having a profitable lean business so far is utilizing technology in the right way.
Brilliant.
We've got a vision of the reward as well, and we can say this having done it. You know, that go back to day one, I woke up and I felt like I did the right thing. Day 10, I was like, my God, this is hard. I can see now why a lot of people don't go off and set up their own business, because
Yep.
it's not all it's cracked up to be. Yeah, quite frankly, the financial rewards aren't there like they used to be in the same way. So
Yep.
it's very much like for like now in terms of a reward structure. Yes, you get the autonomy, but as soon as you start hiring, you've got the responsibility of other people's mortgages and families to feed. So it's not all it's cracked up to be, and I've quickly realised that. But what hasn't necessarily changed over the years in recruitment is the reward structure. So I do think it's very archaic in how a lot of consultants earn their commission. It's very much a commission-driven job.
Yep.
So we're trying to lead the way and pave the way in terms of creating a best-in-class reward function for people that join us. So real high reward, and it does go back to a lot of people out there that are very, very good at their job, but they just don't have that appetite to go off and set up their own company. So
Yep.
can we put the right level of reward in there, utilize technology, manage the business accordingly, not go out and, you know, we're not all driving Range Rovers or Ferraris and putting loads of costs through the business, but have a really sustainable compounding business where people are rewarded for the hard work that they do. Because personally speaking, it's irked me in the past after 15-20 years of experience, and you've got your own network, yet you're still giving away so much of your hard work in terms of revenue to your current employer. We don't want to do that. We don't want to exist purely to make a significant profit off the people that work really hard for our business. We want them to feel like they're rewarded fairly, and touch wood, so far we've got that really well. And when we're talking to people who've got an interest in joining us currently, they look at our reward structure and they're like, wow, that's brilliant. So you do think if you get these fundamentals right, and you're not just being a cliche greedy business owner, that you can then move towards that sustainable business.
Yeah, great. No, I say it's an interesting concept. It's something that we talk to a lot of people about, mainly to help people move through a process of, if we don't at least are open to that concept, then we end up stuck in the trenches. I got the phrase of being in the trenches, absolutely, and I think it's
Mm.
there's no question that for the first few years of founding a business, we are in the trenches. It's almost impossible not
Yeah,
to be.
absolutely.
Although there is the trick of founding a business where you can't do the work, in which case you're never actually tempted to. Our founder went through a phase of buying lots of hairdressing outlets because he couldn't cut hair, and it was a really cool thing that he never therefore got stuck in that. But interesting enough, I did hear a lady called Jennifer Byrne speak some time ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, and she's ex CTO at Microsoft. And one thing she said, which I found really interesting, and there was lots of business owners and founders in the room, and I think they all found it quite interesting, was she said in the US now, when they recruit C-suite executives, they actively test them on their ability not to do things. And you could hear everybody sort of
Really.
sit and step back and try to process that. And my belief, the point was, our job is to be great leaders of other people doing lots of stuff. No, and she
Yeah.
wasn't suggesting we sit back with sit back and go and play golf or anything, but it was very much, that's our job as an organization, a business grows, the team grows. Our job is the leadership more, and going back to your point of I think Joe's point of 80/20, yeah, move that dial more towards 50/50, and to include leadership. Brilliant. So I'm keen to know what the future looks like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
That is the million-dollar question. We talk about this quite a lot, don't we? What's the end goal? And
Everyone said that at the start with the exit
yeah,
mind.
start the exit in mind. Yeah,
What does that exit look like? I think look, my previous business went through an EOT transaction. They're not as popular now as they once were. The tax laws have changed, and
Right.
they you definitely don't see them as well suited to certain businesses. The who knows what their exit looks like, because obviously it's very much future dependent on having the right people around you and building, like you say, a business and not a job. I keep going back to that comment I made at the last quarter celebration of, if as long as we keep coming to work and being happy, enjoying who we're working with. Again, I'm not going to swear on the podcast, but have a no
Okay.
certain type of person policy within the business. Enjoy who we work with, what we do, and make enough
Yeah.
money to look after our families, have a nice life. Then we're kind of winning already.
100%.
I think we always want to keep it as a sort of boutique. We've
Yeah.
not saying head-wise, we probably won't go above 20 heads. There's 8 of us now. We're looking at bringing another couple of heads in this year.
No, none of us can include Oliver.
Yeah,
No, including Oliver, which again is far exceeded our people expectations where we wanted to be at this stage.
and there's obviously a focus on succession. So again, it is
Yeah.
about bringing in people that are at some point, going to probably want to sort of move through the business and take over from ourselves. Joe's a little bit younger than Jav and I, so he might have to work a bit longer.
I do wind up a lot about that.
But I
Brilliant.
think it is keeping it to a boutique recruitment business with people that share our values, share our outlook, and get some succession in. But we haven't quite firmed up what that end goal looks like just yet, isn't it? I think
We've been through businesses that have been they've been collaborative, they've been a really good place to work, and then there's been an exit event that's been triggered that's outside of your control. And the whole modus operandi changes, profit becomes an absolute key focus. While that is a key metric for us, our business is very much profit for purpose. And again, having the 3 different shareholders running the company, we have to agree, we have to be aligned. We can't be right, I'm the major shareholder. What
100%.
we can sell whatever we want to the people on the ground floor, but whatever I say goes. That's not what we are, and it's very much bringing the people along that journey as well. We don't want
Yeah.
we've been in PLCs, we've been in private equity backed businesses, we've been in owner managed businesses where that behavioural change has been there. It's grown from 10 to 20 to 30 people, and there's cliques that have formed, and there's politics that start happening. There's been an exit event, so there's been a massive impetus on earnings, EBITDA, what multiple are we going to get for the business, and it does change.
I would suggest, and I think alignment is very important. I would suggest working out what that looks like will avoid that. It's not a has to. It's under your choice. So being really clear helps you move towards that end goal, whatever that is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to change. We see it in businesses happen, but that's more because of the drive of individuals, just as you rightly say. From a financial perspective, that doesn't have to be the only thing that's important, especially, and it certainly comes across very strongly from our conversation that isn't the most important thing to you guys. So you get to decide. But I would suggest quoting yeah, Stephen Covey would be one, start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love the follow up quote to that, which is there's no point climbing the ladder of success to find you put it up against the wrong wall. So I think it's
Great quote.
Yeah.
it is a great quote because you guys, it's great to see that you have different views. Not I wouldn't say massively different to lots of other people. I think most successful businesses do have strong purpose, but clearly that's really is accentuated by you guys in what you do. And it's just like looking forward to what that might look like, so that then everyone has that brightness of future of understanding the exit point. Because the exit point doesn't have to be a drive for profitability. It can just be a natural progression of who you are and what you do. Um, but yeah, fascinating. Well, guys, it's been really fascinating talking to you today, and I really appreciate you being open with what you've learned and what you've achieved, what you've overcome. And for anyone that's watching that would like to get in touch with you or if talent, what would be the easiest way of doing that?
Connect with us on LinkedIn, follow us on LinkedIn, Ingham Franklin Fide or IFF Talent, you'll find us on there.
Watch out for our new website.
Watch out for our new website. Yeah, it's our current one. It was a measure of us not putting our hands in our pocket and not spending what they would. And
There's a landing page.
we call it a landing
Pretty
page rather
much
than a
standard.
website. Yeah, way by that.
But
We thought it would be, but we've been prudent along the way in getting there. But yeah, follow us on LinkedIn. Our emails, if you want to drop us an email, joe@iftalent.com, rachel@iftalent.com, two F's, jav@iftalent.com. It's very, very easy to remember.
brilliant. Well, it'd be great to swim by another 6 to 12 months and just see that next progression and what both of the business and your thoughts about the future. But for now, thanks so much for your time.
We
Yeah, thank you.
appreciate it, Chris.
Thank you.